Hi everyone, so today I am going to talk you through how to make some scrambled eggs. It's a really cool recipe that I found that Sarah loves and says they are really good eggs. So they're really easy to do, and the biggest step is just giving them a bit of time to sit and wait. So all you need is milk, butter, bacon and eggs. Okay, so one thing about this recipe is it doesn't scale very well for one person. It uses 3 eggs and then something like 2 tablespoons of milk and 1 of water, and that doesn't really divide very well. You end up with like weird fractions if you try and half it. So crack the eggs into a bowl. So next up you add 2 tablespoons of milk. 1, 2. I like to use whole milk, but you can use any milk. It's just whole milk is the best milk, and all other milk is basically just water. And you also add 1 tablespoon of water. Finally, you add a bunch of salt. I don't really get very precise with that. Well seasoned. Now you whisk it all up together and you leave it to sit for about 10-15 minutes until it starts to change colour. It should go like a richer yellow. This does something sciencey to the eggs. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you want to read more about it, this recipe is from a guy called Kenji Lopez Alt, who writes for Food Lab, which is a column on Serious Eats, and he does really awesome stuff. So check out all his recipes and he'll tell you exactly why the salt does this awesome thing to the eggs that makes them taste better. So now you just whisk everything together. Ooh. Make sure the eggs break. Okay, so now we're just going to leave this to sit. Leaving those eggs for 15 minutes or so gives us time to start the bacon. I'm going to be making, as hopefully, fingers crossed, some crispy American bacon. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. Most people would just use a lower temperature in the oven for longer. I prefer to use 180 and just take them out, let them cool, and then put them back in. So we're going to put these in for about 15 minutes, which is great because it means that they can be about ready for turning and taking out when the eggs are done. And it all works out quite nicely. So just going to stick that on a foil-lined tray straight into a preheated oven. I know a lot of people like to do bacon in the pan, but I always try and do it in the oven just because I prefer how that comes out. If you do want to flavour the bacon or add something different to it, I personally quite like maple. Honey is also a good one. You just kind of mix it up with a tiny bit of oil and just sort of lightly brush it on. Today I'm just going to be doing plain bacon. So this just goes into the oven. It's a fan oven, so it shouldn't matter at all what shelf it's on. All that will matter is that at 10 minutes, take them out and flip them, and then after 15 minutes, take them out and sit them on a rack so it can cool down. And then that's all we're kind of doing for now. We're just waiting for everything to cook a bit and be ready. Oven's beeping, which means it's time to flip the bacon. At this point, all you're doing is taking out and flipping it over. I am flipping the bacon so that it cooks evenly on both sides. This is crisping up really well on one side but not on the other, which means that the oven heats unevenly. You've got to be careful of this when you're using an oven. Sometimes they are not hot and the same temperature all the way around, so I'm going to make sure I put the tray around the other way this time so they heat, again, just a little bit more evenly. Not going to be a problem. Most ovens do that. There's actually a really cool thing you can do called the toast test, which tells you where the hot spots are in your oven. It sounds really stupid, but you just turn the oven on really high and you put bread slices flat on one of the shelves of the oven, and where they start to toast first, it'll give you a heat map of where the hot spots are. If you're baking, that's a really important thing to know because you need to know which areas of the oven are going to be cooler or warmer, and it tells you how much space you've actually got to cook stuff in. We definitely should do that in our kitchen, but I'm afraid the answer will be nothing toasted because your oven sucks. Bacon should be about ready to rest now, so I'm going to take that out, stick it on a rack to cool, and I'm going to check out the eggs and see how they're doing as well. Okay, bacon is looking pretty good actually. It's going to be fairly crisp at this point, but I want a little bit extra fat to render out of it, so I'm going to set it down, let it cool, and then put it back in the oven when it's ready to go, and that way it will be extra crispy. Now, as for the eggs, I'm not sure that they're quite ready yet. They've changed colour quite a bit, but I'm just going to give them a quick whisk and see how yellow they are. I'm looking for them to go a bit more orangey yellow than they currently are, so I'm just going to give it some extra salt and a little bit of extra time. Sarah has just informed me that she actually wants cheese in them as well this time, so I'm going to pre-grate a little bit of that into a small bowl, so I've got that all ready to add, because you add that when you're actually scrambling the eggs, and you don't want to be fussing about with a grater at that point because you've got to keep the eggs moving. So I'm going to grate those now so everything is all ready. Fortunately, where this needs to cool for 5 minutes and this needs a little bit of extra time, we've got the perfect amount of time to do that. You can use pretty much whatever cheese you like. We're just using a mature cheddar for this one. I'd imagine anything from sort of like a creamy cheese to anything with like a nice strong taste would be fine. And maybe a red Leicester would be interesting because that would change that colour a little bit. So you don't need very much, it's just a little bit to add some extra flavour. That's all over the side. About that much should probably do. More if you like it more cheesy, less if you like it less cheesy. That's one of those ones, it's up to you. So about this time you can start getting the pan ready for the eggs. All you need to do is put it on a kind of medium to low-ish heat. This one goes from 1 to 9 and I've got it on about 4 right now. And then you add some butter to the pan and make sure that's good and melted before the eggs go in, and we'll get on to cooking the eggs. You don't need too much butter, but it definitely does have to be butter. Butter and salt are like the two things that make restaurant food taste so good, so whenever you get the chance to use them, always use butter. Butter. Probably need a little more than that. Basically just enough to give a thin layer across the whole bottom of the pan. Now the tool you actually need for making the eggs is a flat wooden spoon, kind of like this. Not a regular wooden spoon, because what you're going to be doing is pushing the flat part across the bottom of the pan. So it needs to be a nice, smooth, flat, wide kind of spoon. So the bacon's looking pretty good. Now it's had a chance to cool. It's a lot crispier and a lot more brittle. I'm going to stick that back in the oven in just a second as soon as the eggs go in, so that it just warms back up to hot, and then it'll be ready. Bacon fat. While the butter is heating up, you can get your preferred carb ready for the eggs. We like English breakfast muffins. They look a lot like this. They're really good toasted, so I'm going to cut a few of those in half, get them a little bit wet like naan bread, and pop them in the oven to toast up. Okay, this looks better and has gone slightly more orange, and all my butter is melted, so I think I'm about ready to kick this all off. So first things first, I'm going to get the bacon and the muffins back in the oven, get the muffins a little bit wet with just a sprinkle of water, and then the bacon just goes straight back in on the shelf. Same temperature of 180. So for the eggs, you just pour it straight in, let it sit at the bottom of the pan for just a little bit until it starts to cook, and then you push across and push the thin film of cooked eggs over to one side. This is what makes them kind of fluffy and gives you really big scrambled egg kind of curds. Okay, so you can sort of see that you're kind of just gathering the flat little sheets of egg into one corner pretty much. You don't want to be too rough with it, you're not kind of like going crazy with the spoon, just kind of being very gentle and just sort of pushing it off to one side. If when you're pushing it there isn't that sort of little sheet of egg on the bottom, your pan might be slightly too low or you haven't left it quite long enough. So if you wait a little bit longer or turn the pan up a little bit, that should be fine. I like to add pepper at this point, just a little bit, and then a little bit more on the top when they're all done. When it's starting to look about sort of half done is when I usually like to add the cheese, so that it's got plenty of time to kind of melt into the eggs. And same thing, you just keep pushing it to the side, even when it starts getting like this, it starts being mostly cooked. Here's kind of the hardest part of the whole thing, is trying to judge whenever it's done. I personally think Sarah likes her eggs a bit overcooked. There's a saying that if they're done in the pan, they'll be overdone on the plate, because they do sort of carry over cook a little bit, but Sarah prefers her eggs overcooked. So we're probably going to, in this video, do them until they're properly cooked in the pan, but really you want to pull them slightly before they're almost cooked. If you think it needs another 30 seconds, that's the right time to pull them.
So I do like fluffy eggs, but I like them to be quite solid. I don't like really creamy eggs. So if you want creamy, take them out on ashes. But if you like them a little bit harder, like I do, leave them a little bit longer.
Here we go. You can hear they're starting to make a lot more noise now. This is getting very close to the point where I'd pull them probably if I wanted them properly cooked. But I'm going to carry on past that just a little bit for Sarah's preference. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat off underneath these now. They are almost done. I'm just going to get everything else ready, so the muffins and the bacon is ready. Let them sit pretty much on the heat for now, just so they continue to cook just a little bit and then they don't get cold while I'm doing this. Okay, so final step for the bacon is just to transfer it to some kitchen paper on a plate, just to, oh, snap that one. That's good, that means that it's gone proper crispy. Is to transfer it to a plate lined with some kitchen paper, just to get rid of some of the excess fat from the outside of the bacon. This is really crispy bacon. You can actually just pull it like that.
Smells amazing.
Yeah, it smells pretty good. So they're all ready, and then the English muffins come out the oven. Now, Sarah likes hers with a little bit of butter on them after they've been toasted. Personal preference on that one. Butter them, don't butter them, put extra stuff on them, put ketchup on them, completely up to you. It's incredibly hard to present these actually well, so you kind of just put the egg on top of the English muffin and then put some bacon by the side of it. Okay, and that's the end of the recipe. Here are the final product that Sarah gets to eat and enjoy for breakfast. Let us know in the comments how you get on with this recipe, and let us know how it went. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!